So, you need to do Blood Moon Rises, eh? Hope you like Dark Souls there, buddy. Dodging shit. Vampires, people complaining on Reddit. Anyways, here's what you're gonna First off, if you're just here for the boss fights, just go ahead and slide the little scroll bar thing to the section for those. Best of luck, champ. I believe in you. Are they gone yet? Who cares? Screw those guys, right? Alright, so this quest isn't that bad. I personally found Desert Treasure 2 much harder, but different strokes for different folks, right? Anyways, to start this quest, I would recommend this starting inventory. This inventory will change very quickly later on because there's new consumables for this quest that replace a lot of this shit. We'll get there soon enough. Mainly just need a few travel pieces and the couple of recommended items to progress through the quest story. The only optional thing here is bring 40,000 coins if you don't have your Blisterwood flail available. That way you can get a new one. Outside of that, you can honestly just bring whatever you want. There is no hard requirements. For equipment, gear isn't that big of a deal until you get to the Wyrd fight, and even that isn't that bad at all. You're going to be using the new Hallowed flail for most boss fights near the end, so no need to worry about weapons either. Just bring your normal Blisterwood flail for now, and an extra stabby stick if you want one. Later on, you will have to do a couple mini Theater of Blood boss fights that will require ranged melee and magic switches, so just be prepared for that. No need to have it starting off though. Alright, that's the inventory and gear. Let's go kill some vampires. To begin this quest, head to the Icene Graveyard. Easiest ways to get there are using the boat in Berderot, Myreque, or Sleep. I personally used the Mauritania legs to teleport to Berderot, then took the boat. If you don't have those, you can also minigame teleport to Shades of Morton and just run south. Once you are graveyarding, speak to Serious Guile to start the quest. Once done with him, head to the hideout under Old Man Rao's house in Myreque. Do this by taking the boat and noodling your way through Myreque like the good old days. Once you arrive in the hideout, inspect the makeshift shrine for a neat cutscene. Something happens there, and I guess afterwards, grab a Vyre outfit from the chest in the room. Equip it, talk to Ivan Strom, and tell him you're ready for Darkmire. It's time to fight your first set of vampires. Once you arrive on Darkmire, you're going to be fighting Virewatch and Virewatch Sentinels to protect yourself and Ivan. Initially, 3 Virewatch are going to spawn, with another spawning with each one you kill. Eventually, the Sentinels will spawn that use magic-based attacks that make this a little bit more interesting, but if you've ever farmed blood shards, this is kind of just, another day in the office. This is another one of those brute force and stay alive for a few minutes to buy some time kind of fights, which happens a lot during this quest. Pray protect from melee and attack all the vampires so they focus on you instead of Ivan and just slowly whittle them down. Easy enough. If Ivan does get low, you can heal him with food. It likely won't be necessary though. Also, periodically, an acidic Bloodveld will spawn that will beeline for Ivan. You need to kill it before it gets to him, womp the little wiener, and be on your merry way. After eliminating the vampire hierarchy, talk to Ivan, who will tell you to head to the church and sleep. Now head on over to Sleep. You can use the Drakan's medallion or home teleport to Lumbridge and run there. I don't care, man. Pick your poison. Once there, talk to Ivan just west of the chapel. After that, go into the Sleep pub and ask the bartender Roy about a friend. Once that is done, attempt to enter the Cromwick Manor north of the church, where you will see you cannot do that. Then detour your way through the Sisterhood Sanctuary in the southern part of Sleep. This will be the way to get into Croy's laboratory. Once in the sanctuary, keep heading north until you reach said laboratory, then use the ladder to go up into Cromwick's Manor. There will be another Virewatch fight here with a total of 4 to kill. Sounds like work for a hero like you, right? Pound them to smithereens like you always do, champ. Once you're done bonking them, talk to good old Truth Hurtz. Bro is back from the slime pits and ready to party. After talking to Veliath, you'll be heading to the Paterdomus Temple in between Canifis and the normal world. Easiest ways to get there would be to teleport to Canifis or use Faring CKS, so, just get to jogging there, bud. Once in the Paterdomus basement, talk with Ivan, read the book, then talk with Ivan again. After that, you'll be heading upstairs into the chapel where you'll need to kill a bunch of Zamorak monks. They fall over like wet paper basically, so don't worry, shit's really easy. Kill all of the sheep, then go up a level. Once upstairs, you'll be doing your first puzzle of the quest. Talk with Ivan, then begin searching the bookcases. Some have multiple books, some only have one, some have none. You need to get the following books: Pious Proceedings, The Life of Friar, The Scruffy Notebook, From Mist Halen to Mauritania, Sorrel's Journal, and Isiander's Notes. Once you get all of these books, you need to place them on the plinths on the side of the room. From north to south, place Pious Proceedings on the first plinth, The Life of Friar on the second, Scruffy Notebook on the third, From Mist Halen to Mauritania on the fourth, Sorrel's Journal on the fifth, and Isiander's Notes on the sixth. After completing this step, talk with Ivan to get Ivandis' writings. Read them and then talk to him again. He will then take you back to the mausoleum. Now it's time to get ready for another fight with some Buyer Watches. If you don't have supplies from the previous encounters, I would maybe suggest and grab a few if you aren't that confident. It's another brute force kind of fight where you just kind of try to outlast them, but a little longer than the last couple. You can easily run to Canifis to get to the bank if you do need to restock. Once you are ready for spaghetti, talk with Ivan, after which you will be heading to the Myreque hideout. Boom, special effects, transportation, cross dissolves, things like that. Talk with Ivan once you get there to get a bronze pickaxe, since I doubt you are carrying a random pickaxe. After that, head a tiny bit south and mine away the blockage. Enter the newly holed hole, then head northeast through the tunnel. After entering said tunnel, there will be a few Firewatches and Firewatch Sentinels to defeat inside. Focus on the Sentinels first while praying protect from magic. The other Firewatch are literally just basically cannon fodder. Much like the Sins of the Father boss fight, they will occasionally spawn a blood orb that will do passive damage. You can lure the Firewatches into these blood orbs to deal massive damage to them. Just be careful because the orb has a massive range. I believe it's 2x2 or 3x3, and if you go into it, it's very easy to get kablooied because, you know, I suck. Luring them does make this go by faster, so I would recommend doing it though. If you die or teleport out of the fight, you can find it again by going into the Myreque hideout south of Canifis, then going through the closest hole after the hidden door. If you die, the grave will be in Ivandis' tomb. But you're not gonna die during this quest, man, because you know what? You are the hero of Gilneor, right? After pantsing said vampires, talk to Ivan, then head northwest and climb up either of the stairs. After climbing the stairs, head east and pray to the shrine. By doing this, you will now be able to teleport back to Castle Drakan using Drakan's medallion. Make sure you do this step because it is incredibly important and makes the heavy puzzle parts of this quest much easier. After praying at the big rock, enter the portal at the center of the room. Welcome to Castle Drakan, you rascal. Alright, so navigating Castle Drakan and Vampyrium. There's a lot of puzzles in this shithole, and it's annoying, but before we get there, let's quickly discuss the new consumables that you're going to have available to you throughout your time during this quest. Specifically, during your time in Vampyrium, you will have access to unique, quest-specific supplies. Some of these supplies can be found as individual spawns around the areas, or can be used by searching chests within the castle. Each one is meant to replace a typical consumable you would bring to something like this, and being the dumbass I am, I did not realize this and kept my normal consumes for most of the quest. So I'm telling you now so you are not like me and waste money. Here is a list of items that you will come across. First off are two foods: Mysterious Jerky, which is a high healing food that restores 22 HP, and then a Smelly Kebab, a fast food that does not cause tick delays when eaten. This heals 18 HP. Next is Foul Chunky Potions, a mix of Super Restore and Prayer Regeneration Potion. Putrid Sticky Potions are the equivalent of Stamina Potions. Rank Frothy Potions are the equivalent of Super Combat Potion. And Rancy Slimy Potions, which is basically just a Ceradome and brew, but drains stats way slower, meaning you can literally just spam them and not need to restore until you've sipped like 12 times. It's basically just a free heal. And finally, you have Jars of Congealed Blood, which immediately restores all your hit points in your prayer. These can only be taken one at a time from the designated supply areas, but more can be picked up throughout the castle regardless of how many you already have. So if you see one, grab it. It's basically like a full restore. It gets rid of all your issues, heals all of your stats and everything. These supplies are Blood Moon Rises specific and cannot be banked, but it is nice to have free consumes. You're gonna need them later, trust me. Before each major boss fight, you'll likely see a tent or table that can be interacted with to restock on these supplies, so take advantage of it when you can. The other important piece to mention for the rest of this quest is that if you die, you will respawn at predetermined checkpoints with all of your items kept. You will rarely die until you fight Drakan, but if you do, it's much easier to recoup and get back in there. All right, that's enough for now. Back to the El Questorino. All right, so you just entered the portal to Vampyrium, entourage in tow. As soon as you enter, several Venators will chase you, forcing you to split up from the squad and escape to another room. At this point, the world map icon is going to change and be replaced with one of the castle, which shows the rooms you've visited, unlocked doors, puzzles left to solve. It looks like this, you know, it's a much more simple map to navigate and see. This part of the quest is fucking puzzle city, so prepare yourself. Let's start with fixing the clocks. The wiki does a really good job of explaining the path to take here, along with a good image that I will throw up on the screen here. A lot of what I will be reading here is verbatim from the wiki page on this quest, just as an FYI. Now, with A as the starting point on the map, pick up and read the poem scroll on the table just south of point B. Then go through the east door and then search the throne at point C, which will reveal 4 levers in the bust to the east. From north to south, pull the 3rd, 4th, 1st, and 2nd busts in that order. You're going to hear a click, then search the throne room again for the half moon key. Once done, go through the south door, then search the shelves D to the southwest to find the small clock hand. With hand in your hand, go through the doors to the north, then west to return to the dining room. Then go through the doors to the northwest to return to the main area. Next, go up the stairs, then take the southwestern door. From here, run north, dodging the blood traps on the ground, and go through the western door. Grab the explosive barrel at point F here. You'll notice that I forgot to do this. I'm just going to cut out whenever I go back and get it. You should grab it right now. Enter the south door and get the Drakan emblem at this point at point G. Then exit the room. After that, go through the east door, then through the north door. From the 2nd floor of the main entrance hall, go through either of the north doors. Once inside, run all the way to the east and pull the lever at point J. This is going to create a portal right next to you, but you won't take it right now. After pulling the lever, run through the north unmarked door. Then head to the south door next to the empty receptacle while avoiding the traps. Once you get there, place the Drakan emblem on the receptacle at point H, then enter. Search the crate in the northwest corner for a large clock hand at point I. Now that you have the 2nd clock hand, exit the room, then return to the western door, again while avoiding traps. Now take the portal that you made earlier, which will take you to point K on the map. Enter it, then use the south door, then the west door to return to the dining room fireplace at point L. Now in the dining room, place the small hand on the western grandfather clock, set the big hand to 11 and the small hand to 9. After that, place the large hand on the eastern grandfather clock. Set the big hand to 12 and the small hand to 4. If properly done, now inspect the fireplace and search to receive a 2nd Drakan emblem. Alrighty, it's time to get the Crescent Moon Key. To get the Crescent Moon Key from the starting point A, go through the north door to enter the main hall. Then go up the stairs and through the door to the northwest. Once in there, go through the north unmarked door. Avoid the traps and go to the 2nd door located on the eastern wall. Put your emblem in the receptacle and enter the door. Then go through the door on the south wall. Once you're in here, go to the crack in the west wall. This is where you're going to put your explosive barrel. Like I said earlier, I forgot to get this. I'm just going to skip ahead to where I get it because right after this, I just ran and grabbed it and came right back to this point. All right, with the explosive barrel now, use it on the explosive wall to create a hole in it, but do not enter it right now. Instead, you're going to leave the room from the door you came in, then go through the western door. Make sure you remove the emblem after exiting that room. Now, place the emblem on the south wall right next to where you are, then enter. Once you're inside, place the other emblem in the eastern receptacle, then enter the door there. Once you're in there, you'll be attacked by a Venator. You could run past it or kill it. I'd run past it for right now. I'm going to explain how to kill these monsters here soon. Enter the hole at the end of the room. Once inside, take the emblem out from the receptacle by the north door at point F, then use the hole in the wall again. After the hole, use the west door, then take the emblem out from the door you just exited at point E on the map. Then enter the north door and take the emblem out from the door you just exited at point D. You should now have 3 emblems total in your inventory. With these 3 emblems now in your inventory, place one of the emblems on the receptacle next to the east door at point B, then enter the door. Once inside, place a Drakan emblem on the door to the north, then enter. In this room, take the ornate skull off the table at point G. Just a note, when I was doing this quest, I forgot to do this and had to go back, but I'm going to skip that part once we get there. Now, leave the room and remove the emblem from the receptacle at point B. Once done, climb down the stairs at point H. Now, in the corridor, avoid the trap and place a Drakan emblem on the receptacle next to the only door in the corridor at point I, then enter. Once inside, place a Drakan emblem on the receptacle next to the west door at point J, then enter to find Veliath. Talk to him, then search the chest on the northern hall at point K and enter this code. Right, down, right, left, left. Unlocking the chest will give you the Crescent Moon key, which can be used to unlock the Crescent Moon doors. Pretty cool, huh? It's time to get the New Moon key. Alrighty, so for getting the New Moon keys, start at the chest room at point A. Go through the west door, then the southwesternmost door to enter a laboratory at point B. Kill all of the Sanguidae because they're honestly just fucking menaces. Once you're done, take the syringe barrel from the table, then search the crate to the southeast for a Venator's stomach. After that, inspect the sink to the west and remove the sink plug. With all these bits and bobs, enter the northwest door at point C. Once you're inside, use the sink plug on the sink, then turn the tap on when prompted. Once the tap water is watering, take the broken pipe from the sink. Use it on the nearby cabinet to receive a sharp knife. Now with sharp knife in your grasp, search the crate near the sink for the syringe plunger. After this, you will be returning to the laboratory at point B through the south door. Once inside, use the sharp knife on the Venator corpse to receive a pair of tongs. Use the tongs on the sink for a syringe needle. Use one of these syringe parts on another to assemble an empty syringe. Now with the empty syringe in your backpack, use empty syringe on the Venator stomach to receive a full syringe. Finally, use the full syringe on the chest to receive a left crest half. Once you've done this, use your medallion to return to the starting point by going into the portal, which will take you to the main hall. I recommend doing this at this point just because trying to backtrack, I got really lost here. So if you just teleport and start at the main area, it's a lot easier to navigate. Once you're there, climb down the stairs at point D, then enter the first door on the south side at point E. In this room, you will actually need to kill the Venator, a new Slayer monster released with this quest. Assuming you are using melee, pray protect from melee and turn it off when it is about to screech to avoid damage. This screech happens every third attack. Once the screech is done, turn protect from melee back on. Easy peasy. That's pretty much the only mechanic you have to deal with when it comes to Venators. Once the bat thing is dead, search the weapons rack at the east end of the room. You're going to need to grab enough axes, maces, spears, and swords to equip all 8 of the statues on the walls in the room. These statues must be mirrored on the north and south sides of the room, i.e. the 2 that are facing each other need to have the exact same weapon equipped. From east to west on the map, they should be holding battle axes, then spears, then maces, then swords. Basically just use the weapons on the statues with empty hands until all 8 are equipped. Once complete, search the chest to receive a right crest half. Combine it with the left to create the full crest. With the full crest, head back to the room with the fireplace and portal at point F by exiting the basement through the northwest door, then up the stairs to the west. From the portal room, go through the doors to the southeast, then east, then north. Once inside this room, use the full crest on the fireplace. Inspect the fireplace and select search to receive the New Moon key. Great job, bud. Alrighty, so the Gilded key. From the fireplace, take the blood portal in the room, then enter the first door to the south. From there, go down the stairs, then down the stairs again to the basement. Then enter either of the doors on the north side A to initiate a cutscene where you free Safalaan and Venescula. Riveting stuff, to be honest. Once the movie has ended, pick up the Gibbous moon key. After getting the key, leave the jail room through either south door, climb up the stairs to the main hall, then climb up the stairs again to the first floor. Then one last time, climb up the stairs again to the second floor. Once you're on the second floor, enter the southeast Gibbous moon door. Kill the Venator in this room so you don't get noodled while solving the room puzzle. After that, light the fireplace, then search the chest at point D for a lockbox. The code for the lockbox from right to left is the 6 dots that looks like a domino, the number 3 looking thing, and the symbol that looks like 4 seeds stacked in a diamond. You will get a fancy gem from the lockbox. After opening the lockbox, enter the southwest door at point E by inputting the passcode SPEAR, S-P-E-A-R. Inside this room, the bookcase at point F will be searchable. Search it for a mysterious book. Open that book to get a second fancy gem. Once you have it, leave the room. Now you should be in the room with the hanging Venator head. Put those 2 fancy gems you have in the eyeball holes of this head on the east wall at point G. After putting in the gems, search the head for an ornate hourglass. Once you have the hourglass, head through the west door. Then go down the stairs. Then go through the southeastern Gibbous moon door. Once inside, go through the eastern unmarked door. Then go through the small southern door. Avoid the traps and go through the southern unmarked door. Once inside, search the crate for the ornate knife. At this point, use your Drakan's medallion to teleport back to the main portal hall. So this is the point I have to head back and grab the ornate skull I had forgotten about earlier. I know I mentioned that to you guys. I'm just going to go ahead and speed up the video. You don't need to worry about this part. It's just going to take a few seconds. Then we can start together again at the main portal hall. With your 3 ornate items now, all you need to do is go up the stairs twice and find a display case on the second floor. All you need to do here is use all 3 of your ornate items on the display case. After putting all 3 in, search the display case for a gilded key. Nicely done, but don't worry, there is more shit to get. Alright, so for the full moon key, you can go ahead and teleport using your Drakan's medallion and go to the starting point in the main hall like I normally do. From there, you're going to go upstairs. Once you're upstairs, enter the unmarked north door. Then you're going to enter the western gilded door. At this point, there's going to be 2 doors on the west side. One is locked, one is unlocked. Enter the unlocked one. Once you're in there, kill the Venator in the room, then talk to Ivan. After speaking with the big dog himself, search the northern bookcase for a gilded book. Then search the southeastern bookcase for a vampire book. Use the gilded book on the western gilded bookcase, then inspect the books when prompted. You'll now need to rearrange the symbols of the vampiric houses in alphabetical order. This is kind of annoying, so I'm just going to go ahead and put the solution on the screen here. Once done, enter the secret passage to the south and take the full moon key from the table. And now it's time to get the last motherfucking key of this section, baby. First, go ahead and use your medallion to teleport to the main hall. Then go upstairs. Then go through the northwestern unmarked door. Then go through the north unmarked door. Avoid the traps, then enter the eastern door at the end of the hall. Now take the emblem out of the receptacle in the northern door, then go down the stairs. Head down the hall, avoiding the traps, then place your emblem that you just took out inside the southern door receptacle, then enter the southern door. Once you're in here, enter the east full moon door. From here, search the northwest shelves and take one of each potion: cloudy gray, weightless black, thick red, and cold bluish white. Now you need to read the inscriptions on each of the basins and place the appropriate color potion on each one. Here are the phrases in each color potion that matches that phrase, as well as where you're going to end up putting them. The cloudy gray potion goes with the phrase "to rise without wings and choke all who are there," which will go on the southwest basin. Weightless black has the inscription "to be a faithful follower that flees the light." That will go in the northeast basin. The thick red will have "to be a river that runs through the body's land," and that will be in the northwest. And the cold bluish white will have "to crack with no voice and slip with no legs," and that's going to go on the southeast. Once you put all the potions in their proper basins, search the altar for an ancient symbol. After getting the ancient symbol, head through the east door. Then head through the northwest corner and pull the lever. Unfortunately, my OBS recording clipped here and I wasn't able to get the footage for it. My apologies, friends. I know that a lot of you guys like visuals, but unfortunately, I just don't have the footage. I do want to make sure that I include this step, so make sure you just run outside of this door right here, head to the northwest corner of the room, then pull the lever there. Once you do that, use your Drakan's medallion to teleport back to the main portal hall, which is where my footage begins again. Once you're in the main hall, climb up the stairs. Then take the southeastern Gibbous moon door. Then take the eastern unmarked door. Then take the northern full moon door. Search the crate inside this room to get the ancient shield. Combine the shield and symbol to create the, you guessed it, shield with symbol. After getting the shield with the symbol, teleport back to the main portal hall. Once you're there, go up the stairs. Then, go up the stairs again. Then go through the eastern Gibbous moon door. Then finally, the southern full moon door. Once you're in there, use the shield on the empty mount at the southern wall. Then search it for a solid key. We're almost done, I promise. Now for destroying the stockpile. First off, teleport back to your handy-dandy starting point in the main portal hall. Then go up the stairs twice. From there, enter the northeastern full moon door. Once inside, enter the gray solid door directly across from you. You will arrive in another laboratory. Once you're in there, search the shelves to the northwest. Take 2 vials of water, 3 vials of blood, and 3 pure essence. Basically, what you're going to be doing in this room is creating different potions and then placing them into the basin until the panels read 53 health points. To do this properly, follow these steps. Use a vial of blood and pure essence on the refiner to receive a chemical vial measuring 17 HP. Do this twice so your panel now reads 34 HP. After that, use a vial of blood and a vial of water on the refiner for a vial measuring 13 HP, and finally use a pure essence and vial of water on the refiner for a vial measuring 6 HP. After you add all 4 of those chemical vials, you should be at 53 HP. Then go through the unlocked north door and destroy the stockpile. After successfully destroying the stockpile, you're going to be teleported through some, lore, RP, and cutscenes, and you're going to end up in an area with your group where you need to repair the Drawbridge by gathering all the necessary tools in this rundown village. You're going to be doing this while playing a game of hide and seek with Lowerniel Drakan, the big bad of this quest. Always make sure you keep your distance from this dude because he will absolutely torch your shit if you are not paying attention. Make sure to utilize the buildings and the doors and everything around you to your advantage, as they serve as a barrier between you and this whirling hog of a person. To start this section, you're going to need to pick up the crank wheel in the small building 3 houses east of the prayer altar, right here. Keep in mind that there are multiple rows and columns of buildings. Use them to your advantage when making your way there. And always keep in mind where Drakan is patrolling. Once you have the wheel, go to the building north of the altar and use the crank wheel on the mailbox-looking crank base located just outside of the house. Once you interact with it, you're going to need to rapidly click on the crank to operate it. While trying to operate the crank, Drakan will start to chase you in this kind of like pseudo cutscene way, regardless of where he was before you started interacting with the crank. It will look pretty spooky, but at the end, just keep spamming that crank. You will notice here that while I did continue to spam the crank and get it done, you get a good example of how fucking hard this guy hits and how fast he hits, because I definitely just straight up died. But I'll go ahead and skip to where I ran back and went inside the building. Eventually, the door is going to unlock and you can enter the house and search the bookshelves for a dusty book. You're going to go ahead and read this dusty book to retrieve the Vitur key. With the Vitur key, leave and go to the Vitur house to the east, then go to the shed to the northeast. Enter the Shedlock code, which is tools, TOOLS. This will give you the bolt cutters. With the bolt cutters, go to the building directly east of the smithing symbol and use the bolt cutters to cut the chain and enter the building. Pick up the loop half of key inside. Then run north to the building east of the prayer altar to obtain the tooth half of the key, which is on a table inside of a house behind a Vitur door. Use the loop and tooth halves together to obtain a Mermel key. With the Mermail key, enter the building northeast of the water icon and take the bucket in the back left corner. Use the bucket on the well, then go back inside the Mermail house and use the bucket of water on the northern barrel to get the Shadoom key. With the Shadoom key, head to the Shadoom house in the southeast. Inside you will find the trapdoor key. Now that you have the trapdoor key, enter the bank and then spam click the crank to open the gate and climb through the trapdoor, where you're going to arrive in the altar room. Inside is a chest. The key code to the chest is 35158. And inside is the Yavkai key. Now that you have the Yavkai key, enter the Yavkai house, which has an anvil symbol on it, to find the cog on a crate. With the cog in your grasp, you can now leave the house. When you do leave, Drakan will approach you and then begin chasing you at running speed, making it much more difficult to avoid him. Make sure you are aware of where you need to go, which is back to Venescula on the east side of town. Do not teleport out of here because you will lose the cog. Just time your movement properly and try to survive as long as possible here if he's trying to catch you. The end goal is just getting back to Venescula. Once you do make it to her, talk to her to progress the quest. A bunch of RP ensues, yada yada. Then, before leaving, Ivan will reveal that he had acquired some supplies from the ruins. Alongside the aforementioned items found in the castle, he's now going to supply the rancid slimy potions and rank frothy potions. As I stated previously, these are just quest versions of Ceridolman brews and super combat potions. You can restock these at any time while you're on this point in the quest. You're likely going to need them here because this is where you will fight Lowerniel Drakan for the first time. After exiting the area, Drakan will confront you and the first of your fights with him begins. So, there are 4 separate instances where you fight Drakan. The first one here is really just an opportunity for you to get familiar with his primary mechanic, which is his spear attack. More specifically, this fight teaches you how to dodge that spear attack. This is a very unique and dynamic mechanic that's, I'd say, relatively new to OSRS, and I'm going to explain it here in just a second. First, for this fight, both Venescula and Veliath will help you, which is cool, but they really just kind of do jack shit in terms of damage. For equipment, just bring whatever you have for standard melee combat along with your flail to maximize damage on Drakan. Stock up on consumables prior to this as well, which again you can do with Ivan right before you enter. So for this fight, Drakan is going to focus on the other NPCs as well as you. When he isn't focusing on you, it's best to not face his front so you don't get hit by his AoE spear attacks. This can be kind of difficult because he does move fast, but just try as best as you can. Really, the goal here, while he's not attacking you, is just to stand behind him and wail on him as best as you can. When Lowerniel does focus on you about 10 or 15 seconds or so into combat, he will use melee attacks and telegraph spear attacks, which will deal moderate damage if caught by one. Typically, the highest you can see here is around 20 or so damage. During the spear attacks, Drakan will draw an arc of blood into the left or right side of his body, which looks something like this. As the fight and other encounters with him progress, he's going to begin adding multiple arcs across his body in succession, creating like a combination of spear attacks you will need to dodge in rapid succession. Your goal here is to dodge these by either stepping backwards or diagonally 1 or 2 tiles. The direction you need to dodge is indicated by which side of Drakan's body he summons the marks on. Specifically, you will have to move opposite to the side he absorbs them. So for example, if the blood arc comes on this side, you need to click on one of these tiles in order to properly dodge it. This takes some practice to master the timing, but you will get so used to dodging these attacks very quickly it will become almost second nature. I personally cannot stand these first couple times that you fight him because the clusterfuck of people make it very difficult to practice this, but trust me, by the time you fight him for the final time, you're gonna have a pretty good idea of how to do this. In fact, by the time you fight Drakan for the final time, you will get to a point where he's using 4 different combinations of these blood arc slashes, all rapidly in succession, meaning you're gonna need to move accurately 4 times in a row to dodge all 4 attacks. I know it seems like a lot, and it is, but trust me, you fight him so many times before the finale that it becomes much easier to manage. Additionally, in this first encounter, the correct tiles to click on are marked with these glitter sparkle things for the first 100 HP of damage you deal to him, so it's a perfect chance to practice and learn the cadence of it. The timing of this is extremely precise and requires it to be nearly tick perfect, as you will learn with further iterations of the fights you have with him. The visual cue that tells you need to start clicking is Lowerniel glowing red right after he absorbs the blood arc. There is also a distinctive sound cue that indicates which tick to begin clicking, but I personally did not need the sounds for this specific mechanic. I felt like the visual arcs made it much easier to follow. But if you are a sound person, try it out and see how it goes. If you are successful in clicking on the safe tiles at the correct moment, you will dodge and roll out of the way, very Dark Souls style like. For this initial encounter, only after dodging a few of his attacks will you be able to actually deal damage to him. And this is likely done in a way for the quest to force you to properly learn the mechanics. My last tip for this initial encounter is that the attacks Lowerniel does only deal moderate damage. While it is important to learn to dodge the attacks, you can 100% brute force this encounter with them. What I mean is you can attempt to dodge a spear to learn the mechanics, but if you fail, you can honestly just spam drink the rancid brews to keep yourself up indefinitely in order to continue practicing. Again, this first encounter is not hard at all and is solely meant to teach you how to dodge him, so try it out and do your best to master the cadence. You will 100% need to be comfortable with this by the time you fight him at the end of the quest. Additionally, if at any point you are worried about dying, you can right-click Quick Escape on the encounter at the southern part of the map. If you do escape the encounter, you will return to a forested area with a rundown tent to gather more supplies. All you need to do for this first encounter is get him to 85%. Upon hitting that 85% of his health, a cutscene will ensue in which you all scatter into the forest, but you will become quickly lost. Congrats, bud, you just made it through the first fight with Lowerniel Drakan. Alrighty, so first fight with Drakan in the books. Time to flee through the woods. This is basically just a triple trek activity where you move through a few different activities. For the first one, 2 ancient feral Vampyres will spawn and attack with melee. They must be defeated one at a time. When one is low enough hit points, it's going to swap places with the other. When it does swap, you need to switch to the one you were attacking. Otherwise, you're going to start attacking the vamp you haven't done any damage to, which will heal the one you were attacking. So just make sure you're attacking one vampire until it dies, then attack the other. Eventually, 2 more will spawn, and you're going to need to do the exact same thing. First activity done. Next, to pass through the section with the dark wood trees, you will need to chop 2 different sides of a tree to fell it and allow it to be traversed over. Occasionally, ticks are going to spawn in your inventory when chopping these trees that can be removed by clicking them. A bronze axe can be found on the stump near the start. Grab it before you begin. All you need to do is click them. I wish I had a way to tell you guys how to properly do this, but I don't. I assume you could probably just follow this sped up version of the way I went. I mean, it's not very hard at all. It's just kind of like understanding where you're going to be moving throughout the area. I hate these types of minigames, man. I'm not going to lie. Alright, done cutting trees. Next is the Maxilla Beast patrols. All you need to do here is turn off run and walk past the Maxilla Beasts using the safe spots in the forest to pass the beasts when they walk back the path. Basically just a hide and seek game. It's really easy. After that are waves of Nilokas, which will spawn from 2 corners. Much like in the Theater of Blood, you need multiple attack styles to deal with this. White ones should be attacked with melee, and yellow ones should be attacked with ranged. If you need a ranged weapon, there are throwable spines on the ground, or you can harvest the dead Venator in the area for more spines if needed. Just burn through all the bugs and move on. Lastly, we have the snake rope thing. For this one, all you need to do is stand behind each of the 3 blood serpents and wrangle them to collect them. If you try to catch them from the front, they will spit at you for 5 poison damage. You need to collect all 3 of the snakes, then use the 3 of them on each other to make a serpent rope. That rope can be used on the long branch tree right here to progress to the next area. Boom, done. Time to chill with the squad in the 80th location of the Myreque hideout. Alright, so at this point in the quest, Safalaan is likely basically fucked, right? But we're going to try and help him because I guess that's what we do, work miracles. To start here, talk with Iferite, then leave the building to the north and pick Amethyre leaves from the Amethyre plant east of the door. Head back inside and prepare the stew to help Safalaan using the ingredients in the room. You can get a bowl on the shelves between the sink and the range, and potato and meat from the cupboard behind the supply table. To make the Amethyre stew, follow these steps. Fill the bowl with water, then add potato to the bowl to make an incomplete stew. Then cook the meat on the range and add it to the incomplete stew. Use the uncooked stew on the range, then use the Amethyre leaves on the cooked stew. Boom, fucking master chef. After that, head on over and use the stew on Safalaan. After you give him said stew, talk to Iferite Hallowed to learn how you upgrade your flail. Make sure to have finished this extremely long conversation, otherwise you cannot progress. In order to upgrade your flail, here's what you're going to need to do. First, you should have the hallowed marks provided to you by Iferite. You'll also need to get a hammer, chisel, and knife from the table in the room, and have your blisterwood flail. Once you have all these things ready, search the crate on the east wall for a blessed silver sickle and the chest just south of it for the diamond. Then use the diamond on the blessed sickle to get a diamond sickle B. Next, get an enchant diamond tablet from a chest on the west side of this room and use it on the sickle to get an enchanted diamond sickle B. After that, grab some blisterwood logs from the crate near the anvil and use them on the enchanted diamond sickle to get the blisterwood sickle E. Finally, use that to craft the hollowed flail at the anvil. After making the new flail, talk to either Saray or Ivan Strom. After that, go into the eastern room and fletch some blisterwood stakes using the blisterwood logs and a knife you get from the supplies in the room. I honestly only made like 25 of these and I personally never used them, so you can just make them to get past this part of the quest and then get rid of them. Once you have the stakes, talk to Ivan again. Then head downstairs and talk to Vanescula Drakan. After this, go back upstairs and talk to Sugadinti. Finally, prepare for the next fight with Lowerniel. This fight is another step in the progression of difficulty when fighting him, so stock up on supplies from the table in the base. I would grab maybe like 5 foul chunky potions, which are the restorers, as well as 1 rank frothy potion and 10 to 12 slimy rancid potions. You're probably not going to need all of these, but it's still good to have. Once you are geared up and have your supplies ready, head outside to start the base defense section of this quest. Alright, so Drakan's Onslaught. Before you fight Drakan, you need to defend the hideout. Specifically, you're going to need to defend the RNI from the incoming portals in the sky with a ballista, with the goal basically being to endure long enough to have a sufficient amount of participation to pass this quest. You're going to have this ballistae and need to shoot the portals in the sky as they spawn. The portals will die in one hit and it's really simple at first. Eventually though, as you continue to do this, the portals will spawn much faster. Once they start spawning so fast that you can't keep up, you're pretty much going to know that you've done enough to pass through this section. Per the Wikipedia, once the defender integrity reaches about 60%, you can honestly just let the portals overwhelm the remaining defenders. I felt like it took maybe a minute and a half to 2 minutes to do this. Once this does occur, the protective barrier dissipates and the fight continues to the next phase, where you're going to protect the defenses on the inside. Once you head inside the hideout, you're going to see Iferite and 6 more Arene begin fortifying the hideout. You need to grab a hammer and some healing potions from the crates in the back. Similarly to the last defense, you must have a sufficient amount of participation during the sequence or you're going to fail and have to restart from the beginning. This time this actually happened to me because I did not know what was going on at first. The events consist of 3 different things you're going to need to interact with. The first is rubble falling on the Areni, which stuns them and causes them to take damage. You're then going to need to use the healing potion to heal them. The second and third activities are cracks on the windows and the front 2 pillars. You need to use your hammer to repair these as they get damaged. Just like the last defense, you need to do this for a couple minutes, after which the actions will get overwhelming and you will not be able to keep up. Eventually the defenses will get to 0 and you move on to the last part, which is fighting Drakan once again. In the last part of this fight, you're going to need to fight Drakan again, but this time the Arene and Iferite will help you. He does the exact same spear thrust as before, only this time he will do both a circular blood arc spear attack and he adds a brand new type of attack, which is the targeted spear strike. The targeted spear strike is a wind-up charged attack that has a ticking sound. After a few game ticks, he will shoot a 2x3 AoE attack in front of and behind him. It looks something like this. All you need to do for this attack is move to either side of him before he launches it. I think listening for the ticking sounds is very helpful here, but this attack is so slow compared to his other spear attack, I feel like it is much easier to dodge than his blood arc spears, no matter what method you use to see it coming. The new type of blood arc spear attack happens when one of his blood arc spears is a circle of blood tendrils around him that looks like this. This spear attack will cause all of the tiles around him that aren't touching him to be hit with the slash. To dodge this specific strike, you're going to need to move 1 tile toward Drakan, typically just like 1 tile in front of you. Here is what a full dodge of that would look like. Throughout the fight, Iferite will provide you with minor healing. This is definitely another edition of Fight with Drakan that you can literally just brute force, especially since Iferite does a pretty good amount of damage to him. Again, you should always try to learn the mechanics here and continue practicing with the spear dodges, but feel free to pour through your brews as much as possible to last as long as you can. And once again, this is a clusterfuck of NPCs that you have to deal with, so learning it isn't that helpful sometimes because you're just trying to get through all the people on the screen. This fight specifically will end when Drakan reaches 58% of his health. If you do happen to die during this fight, you're going to be placed in the main hall where you can grab more supplies from the nearby table before going back in. So this time around, do not be afraid of dying. Once you do complete this fight, you're going to get some RP, big red circle in the sky, bunch of slaves. Then you'll be in the Myreque hideout. Make sure to finish the dialogue with Sugadinti before moving on. Alrighty, so for the Blood Moon Rises. From the Myreque hideout, teleport to Versenhaza using Drakan's medallion. This next section has you doing Nilokas and Maiden of Sugadinti, Theater of Blood fights with waves of Nilokas in between each one. You're gonna need to gear up for this. All I did really was bring some consumes as well as ranged and magic switches for the Nilokas portion of the fights. You can bring whatever you want, just make sure you can switch properly between the 3 different attack styles. Once you are ready, talk to Sugadinti in the middle of Versenhaza to start the theater. This is basically just doing entry mode Theater of Blood with bug spawns in between, so I'm not going to spend too much time here, right? I'm sure that many of us have done Theater of Blood before. All you need to do for each of the bug waves is attack the Nilokas with the proper attack style, focusing on the big bugs first. Then, whenever the Maiden of Sugadinti fight starts, use Protect from Magic, dodge the blood pools, kill the ads that spawn. Swap your prayers and attack styles for the big Nilokas fight. Simple enough. Alright, time for the Wyrd fight. Wyrd of the Hallowed. After completing Junior Theater of Blood, it's time to travel to Berdarat. You can grab your Mauritania legs to do this or take the boat between Sleep and Berdarat. Your choice. Once you get to Berdarat, I would take the time to gear up for the first actual challenging fight of this quest, which is your fight with the Wyrd. For this, I would get your standard consumes along with a melee setup including your new Hallowed Flail. Here's the example I went with. I'm trying to do this in mid-level gear, man. To see how hard it is, you guys have to give me a break. I know this is chopped as hell. Once your inventory and gear is set up, head east and north all the way until you get just south of the fence separating the area from Barrows. Eventually, you're going to see Ivan and Veliath. Talk with Veliath, who will then let you enter the small hole to fight the Wyrd. Alright, so fighting the Wyrd. First off, if you do die while fighting this boss, you will be placed outside the laboratory with all of your items intact. You can use the bank at Berdarat as needed to resupply and head back on in. Nice little checkpoint, makes it easier. The Wyrd itself has 1100 health and will attack with melee. Protect from melee will significantly reduce the damage of his attacks. Keep it on at all times outside of his special screech attack. Each melee attack will also push the player back 1 tile. For this, if there is no tile behind the player to be pushed into, meaning if you are up against a wall, you're going to get hit for extra damage. So it is important to keep yourself away from the walls. I'd recommend continuously rotating in a square around the room like this. The Wyrd's special attacks are his standard screech attack, slam attack, and blood screech attack. For the standard screech attack, after 2 melees, the Wyrd will screech just like the Venators you fought earlier. Much like those fights, you'll need to turn off your overhead prayer to avoid taking big confusion damage. As soon as the screech ends, you can turn your prayer back on. The Wyrd's second special attack is the slam attack, which is probably the most difficult of all of his abilities. So during the fight, for every other screech attack, afterwards, the Wyrd will slam the ground twice, creating back-to-back shockwaves that move to his left or right side. The sides that each slam goes on will depend on the arm that he attacked you with during his last 2 melee attacks. You'll notice that during the melee attacks, the boss will hit you with either the left or right arm. The direction of each of these 2 slams will depend on the arms it hit you during its last 2 melee attacks. For this example, you'll notice the Wyrd hit me twice with its left side, meaning the slams will be both on the left side. To dodge these, I just need to move to the right side. Here's another example where both were by the right arm, so I'm going to need to move to the left side for both of them. Finally, here's an example where it used both sides, so I need to go on one side and then move on the other. The easiest way to beat this mechanic is to be proactive in your movement during the Screech attack. Depending on which side you need to be on for the first slam attack, orient yourself on either side of the front of the Wyrd prior to it finishing its Screech attack. Then react immediately after that first slam attack in preparation for the second one. This is very easy if it attacked you with the same arm both times because you don't need to move at all. However, if it hit you with two different sides, immediately after the very first slam, move to the other side for the second one. This may seem difficult, but it is very easy to pick up after one or two tries. Now for the final mechanic. After the Wyrd drops below 60% HP, it will occasionally replace its Screech attack with a bloody Screech attack. During this, the Wyrd will summon pools of blood on the ground. Lightning will strike some of these pools and clear the ground, creating a path for you. And your job is to run away from the boss using the path of clear tiles. The closer you are to the boss, the more rapid damage you are going to take. Here's an example of it in real time. There's no major tip for this, you just need to react to the pools forming and clearing up as quickly as possible. So in summary, the mechanics will always follow this sequence. 2 melee attacks, then a Screech, then 2 more melee attacks, and then a Screech, and then 2 slam attacks. Then back to the beginning. After 60%, the Screech attack can be replaced with the bloody Screech attack. Though keep in mind there will never be a point where the bloody Screech attack and slams occur back to back. Learn to react to these patterns and cadences. Turn off your prayer for the Screech and move properly for the slam attacks. Upon reaching less than 10% of his health, the fight will end and a cutscene will begin. Time for another Drakan fight. After defeating the Wyrd, I would recommend restocking supplies and swapping out whatever equipment you may need to fight Drakan again prior to moving on. This is another pre-final fight encounter where you learn another mechanic, so once again, it isn't that bad. Once you already follow the bloody trail on the ground that starts near where the Wyrd was until you get to a broken fence to the north. Inspect that broken fence to move on to the fight with Drakan. Note that if you die or leave the fight, you can restart the fight by walking through the Drakan castle gates. After some RP where Ferrite is saved, you'll begin fighting Drakan along with Ivan, Sugadinti, the Niloca's Queen, and Ferrite. This fight really is the same story as before. The boss will attack your group members and eventually fixate on you. He has the same exact Blood Arc Spear attacks and Charged Spear AoE attacks as before. The new mechanic that you need to learn about is that after he does one of his charged attacks, he will immediately after do an additional Blood Arc attack that you need to dodge. Here you can see it happening in slow motion. And here you can see it happening and me properly dodging it and not being stupid. It's the same shit as before. You only need to react to this additional slash after dodging the charged AoE attack. You can honestly see that I was not very good at doing the mechanics during this encounter, mainly because I just couldn't stand this clusterfuck of NPCs during this part of the fight. It made this really difficult to see what was going on. And because of this, as I have accidentally proven, you can just brute force your way through this by smashing Bruise and just continuously hitting him. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is clearly possible. Anyway, the extra slash is the only new thing. The fight ends when Lowerniel drops to 30% HP, which is about 900-ish health. Don't worry, you do get to fight him one more time in a few more minutes. Once your third fight with Drakan is over, talk to Ivan Strom in Drakan's castle, then talk to Sugadinti Vatur. Once you are done, travel to the Icene graveyard and talk to Iferite Hollow. You're going to get some RP happening, and then once that's over, enter the portal and get ready for the final fight with Lowerniel Drakan. At this point, you should already be relatively geared with everything you want for the fight with Drakan. This will actually be the final fight you have with him, and this is the last fight of the quest. You're going to want to have your best melee gear and your flail ready to go. The only change to equipment I would recommend is to be wearing an Iferite's Aid ring. For anyone who doesn't know, this ring does give you a big boost when fighting vampires. It's a huge help for this fight, and I definitely noticed a very big difference when using it compared to when I wasn't. The only caveat to this ring is there's only 200 200 charges to it, so you will likely need to keep equipping them throughout your fight attempts. There were many times during my attempts where the ring would crumble after 200 hits, and I found myself needing to re-equip a new ring in the very middle of a fight. It's up to you if you do want to use it. I personally think it's worth the hassle and the worry of making sure you keep one equipped. Now, in terms of inventory, I typically had my teleport items, a single combat potion, which is a rank frothy potion, my jar of congealed blood, which is like a full restore, then like 6 or so foul chunky potions, which are like super restores. Finally, I would fill my inventory with super rancid potions, which are brews, and sometimes I would also include some high healing food for the final phase of the fight, especially once I know I was getting near the end and I was going to beat him, because that's when you're typically taking a lot of damage and can't really afford to spam brew sips because you need to be attacking the boss. This is all I brought, and I think there's very little necessary outside of this. As a reminder, you can get all of your consumes for free outside of the fight room and the supply chest. The only thing you should ever need to go banked for is more Epherites aids if you bring them. Prior to going in, I would recommend powering up by drinking your super combat, brew, and full restore potions. Also, make sure you turn on your protect from melee and piety prior to running in because the fight starts immediately aside from the very first time you walk in. And lastly, you'll also learn to turn your camera east because whenever you start the fight, the boss is going to be coming at you from the east. Now, once you're ready to go, let's go ahead and walk on in and get this party started. So, the final fight with Lowerniel Drakan. A lot of people will probably say it's the hardest quest boss fight in OSRS. I personally think the Whisperer was much harder than this boss, and Vardorvis is honestly on par with this guy, but you know what, to each their own. Anyway, Lowerniel has exactly 3000 HP, with 3 total phases and 2 transition phases. It is truly a monster of a boss fight. Now let's go ahead and talk about each phase and what to expect during each one. During phase 1, which is about the first 1000 HP, Lowerniel will be almost exclusively using his basic melee, blood arc spear attacks, and the charged spear AoE attack. The basic melee can be partially deflected with protect from melee, which should be on pretty much at all times by default. It will still slowly do chip damage to you like most boss fights though. Now, the spear attacks you should be extremely familiar with by now. Depending on the blood arc animations you see Drakan perform, you're going to need to dodge left, right, or forward. Here are a few examples you can see. Note here that Drakan can now potentially do up to 4 different slashes in one combination attack, up from 3 the last time you encountered him. In this first phase, these are about as quick as you have been seeing them throughout the quest. Just dodge based on the arcs and slowly whittle down the boss's health. It seems like the first 500-ish or so HP he only uses the blood arc attacks, and then starts adding in the charged AoE spear attacks once it gets to around 2500 HP. Now, when it does come to the charged AoE spear, there is one major notable difference. Instead of just doing the normal charged attack that hits in front and behind of Drakan, he can also do a charged attack where he whirls and hits everything to the front, left, and right of him. You'll know this specific charged attack is about to happen because he will hold his spear over his opposite shoulder versus to his side. Here is a side-by-side example comparison of the 2 different stances he takes for your reference. When this newly whirled charged AoE attack spear happens, you will need to run behind Drakan like this to avoid it. This could be a real pain in the ass considering that you need to move your camera very quickly to make sure you don't miss an arc attack afterward, so expect this to take some getting used to. I personally also found avoiding accidentally clicking on Drakan somewhat difficult here since he leans back for this attack, so make sure you are clicking the tiles behind him and not actually clicking him. I used the Better NPC Highlight plugin to highlight Drakan's hull specifically to assist with this mechanic. Feel free to try it out if you want to. So personally, in my mind, the main issues and concerns you're going to have with this phase and the fight as a whole really are the length and the amount of space you have to work with. This boss is a very long fight and you need to be very focused the entire time. You're likely going to get the first phase down pretty quickly since there isn't a lot that's new. But considering how long it is and the potential amount of attempts you put into this boss, you might find yourself lulling your way through phase 1 a lot. Just be prepared and make sure you try to get out of phase 1 with as much HP and prayer as possible. You are definitely going to need it. As far as the camera is concerned, this is absolutely the hardest part about this entire boss fight is having to react to the boss by moving your camera. Since you don't want to have the boss put you against a wall or else you're going to have to face tank the blood arc slashes, you'll find yourself wanting to go to the sides of and behind the boss quite a lot. Basically trying to keep him near the center of the room so you have room to operate. This takes some getting used to 2, and I just want to warn you beforehand. Having quick and precise camera work is very critical on this boss, so use the initial parts of phase 1 to practice and get that down. Now, once you get the boss to about 2000 HP, the first transition phase happens, where Drakan will teleport out. During phase 2, Lowerniel will vanish from the arena and flood the eastern side of the room with blood pools. 12 portals will spawn outside the arena, 4 each to the north, east, and south, which will discharge solid walls of blood waves in a set pattern. These waves will come at you very fast, and you will need to jump over them in order to avoid them. If you get hit, you get damaged and your prayer is going to be turned off. In order to avoid them, you basically just need to run toward them by clicking them at the proper time, like I'm doing here. You cannot move diagonally to dodge these, you have to be running straight at them. This can be very difficult when you have 2 or 3 waves converging on your position at once. You also need to make sure when a wave from the blood pool side comes, you don't accidentally jump over it too far and into the puddles of blood. To combat this, I would recommend trying to stay near the middle as much as possible. There are a few points during the wave spawns where you have a few game ticks to readjust your position near the center. Take advantage of that. You're going to need to jump, I'd say, about 20 or 25 waves before they finally stop. The last tip I would say here is I prefer to keep my camera pointed overhead like this during the waves phase, which makes it a lot easier. Now, once the waves stop, you immediately need to react to Drakan reappearing. Once he does, he's going to discharge 4 blood spikes at you. These will basically one-shot you if you don't immediately activate Protect from Magic. So as soon as the waves end, get into the habit of turning on Protect from Magic. As soon as the Blood Spike attack ends, Drakan will do one of his combo Blood Arc Spear attacks that you will need to dodge. Once you do dodge it, you will need to re-attack Drakan and deal a large 150 plus damage splat to him. Activate Protect from Melee again prior to this happening if you aren't comfortable dodging yet, because if you don't, you're going to get absolutely ass blasted by 4 straight attacks if you miss dodge. This is another point where moving your camera quickly is paramount, so be alert and ready to dodge at any moment. Assuming that you successfully do dodge the spear attack, normal combat will resume and phase 2.5 will begin. If you don't properly dodge, you're going to need to do another set of waves and try to dodge the attack again. You can fail the dodge up to 3 times total before you're able to move on to the next phase. Now, assuming you do dodge the attack, Drakan will return to the arena and continue on his normal attacks from phase 1. The only differences now are his attacks are a little bit faster, and he can utilize his Blood Spike magic attack and shoot you with 1 spike, dealing big magic damage. In order to combat this, you're going to need to quickly flick on Protect from Magic before the spike hits you. Then flick back to Protect from Melee before his next melee attack. Using the F keys to swap from prayers in your inventory is a really good tip here. If you aren't comfortable or familiar with it, now would be a good chance to practice. F1 is your inventory and F2 is your prayer book by default. Get used to swapping back and forth. With this mechanic, it's extremely helpful. Now, the only other difference during this phase is that when he does his Charge Spear AoE attack, he will now have 2 blood arcs that happen immediately after instead of 1, like you could see here. So now you're going to need to dodge twice after that. For the rest of phase 2, which is about until 1000-ish HP, these are the new mechanics that you will be dealing with. Let's go ahead and move on to phase 3. Not long after dropping below 1000 hit points, Drakan will vanish from the area once again. Blood pools will spawn around the arena and lightning will also randomly strike, preceded by a circular dark gray shadow. If you step into a blood pool, you will take heavy damage and your overhead prayer will be disabled. Lightning will also disable your overhead prayers. Initially during this phase, Lowerniel cannot be targeted and he cannot be seen. Instead, you will wait and he will appear at inconsistent intervals to deliver a 3x5 AoE spear lunge attack. These attacks will be preceded by him appearing briefly 3 times facing the player around a 90-degree rotation, like this, with the final direction marking the direction of his attack. For example, if his third appearance is to the north of the player, the AoE attack will span 3 tiles to the left and right of you, and 5 tiles to the north and south of you, meaning all of these specific tiles will not be safe. This attack will deal 20 to 30 damage, but it is avoidable by moving at least 2 tiles perpendicular to his attack direction. For example, I would move to one of these tiles before he lunges his attack. To consistently hit this dodge, stand mostly still while minding the lightning bolts, and immediately click in the direction where Lowerniel first appears. That's the key to this mechanic, right? Click on where he first appears. He will perform this lunge attack 4 times consecutively before reappearing. Unlike the blood waves, some diagonal movement is tolerated for a successful dodge. Really, you just need to hit somewhere perpendicular to his planned movement. Normal pathing mechanics do not apply when dodging the attacks, as you can move more than 2 tiles at once. Use that to your advantage, meaning if there is a blood pool or gray space 2 tiles away from you in the direction that you need to dodge, you can click beyond the blood pool and still be safe. After dodging his spear and lunge attacks, it will be exactly the same as the other transition. Drakan will reappear and sacrifice some of his health to launch 4 enhanced blood strikes, which must be blocked with Protect from Magic. And just like before again, Drakan will use a combo attack to follow that up that you need to dodge extremely quickly. If you dodge it perfectly, you're going to deal a guaranteed 80 damage on the next hit you perform. The other difference here is, unlike the blood wave phase, successful dodges and punish hits after the blood strikes do not skip the remaining lunges. In total, Lowerniel is going to perform this lunge sequence followed by the blood strikes 3 times no matter how successful or unsuccessful you are. Once again, like in the last transition phase, I opt to move the camera overhead and zoom out this time. That way, I only have to focus on a small part of my screen and don't need to move my mouse far to react quickly. Assuming that you survive these 3 waves of lunges, the final phase 3.5 will begin. When all 3 of his lunge attack sequences are finished, phase 3.5 begins. During this phase, Drakan will resume normal combat at an even faster tempo than before. He won't use his Blood Spike magic attack from phase 2 anymore, but the blood pools and random lightning strikes will persist for the rest of the fight and continue to deal damage and disable your overhead prayer. So you need to be aware of them as you dodge and hope for some good RNG. The lightning and bloods are definitely the hardest part of this phase because if your prayer is disabled, Drakan will absolutely ass blast you in no time if you don't turn Protect from Melee back on. Also, while it may not be noted in the wiki, I personally feel like he moves even faster during the last 300 HP or so, almost like an enrage phase. I am not understating that when I was attempting this boss, I got him below 100 HP 8 or 9 times before I killed him. Moving the camera, dodging the RNG lightning and blood pools while avoiding his slash attacks is definitely no joke. For the average player, which includes myself, expect to spend the most time progressing through this last phase than any other phase, by a long shot. Once you get really good at the first few phases, I would opt to bring more high healing food and less brews for this phase specifically, as well as keeping your jar of blood for emergencies in this phase as well. Spamming brews is really not possible and not recommended for most parts of this fight, and is definitely not happening during the last phase here. You will not be able to keep up with the damage he deals if you can't dodge at least 80% of his attacks properly in this last phase. Now, if you do happen to die while fighting Drakan, you will be placed with full health and prayer by the door leading to the fight with any remaining supplies you had. There are no death fees and more supplies can be taken from the chest. The only caveat here is obviously you have to start over from the beginning of the fight. If you teleport away from the fight or supply room, you will need to return to the IC graveyard by boat and re-enter the portal, which again will definitely happen if you need to restock any Farate's aids if you bring them. This takes practice, patience, and a real mastery of dodge mechanics in this game. It took me about 4 hours total to kill Drakan, and that's with multiple breaks in between. Just keep practicing. Eventually, everything is going to click on one god pool, and you'll get to the end. Nice job, champ. You did it. Now, once Drakan is defeated, a long cutscene will play. A lot of really good lore if you have been keeping up. Some crazy cool graphics, and finally, you will be placed northeast of the IC graveyard with that beautiful scroll on your screen. You did it, big guy or big gal. You made it to the end. Thanks for hanging out with me. Go grab that quest cape back and take it for a whirl. I'll see you guys on the next one.